Welcome to Season 5 of the Lead with Coffee podcast, where we continue the journey into how you can change the culture in your business and your home through simple leadership practices. Grab a cup of coffee and get ready to join into today's conversation. Welcome back to Lead with Coffee. Today we want to launch you into 2023 with your big dream in the forefront. Dreaming big was how we started this podcast. We went to the Dream Big conference with Bob Goff, and David's big dream was to start a podcast. And lo and behold, COVID gave us time to figure out how to do that while we were sitting at home wondering what to do with our business.
Thank God for Amazon that delivered.
That's right. Why not start a podcast in our downtime? And so as you're thinking about 2023, it's the first week of January when we are recording this, and we're thinking about what are our big dreams for the year. And it can feel overwhelming. A lot of people can dream. A lot of people can throw ideas out there, but they never get anywhere. They don't get any traction. And I believe that is because you're not breaking it down into bite-sized pieces that really give you the roadmap that you're looking for. And so today it's big dreams, small steps. What are those small steps, and how do you get there in a really successful way without overwhelming yourself and those around you?
Yeah, and I think it's like, everyone talks about New Year's resolutions. It's kind of the thing. And it's like, I'm going to start at the gym, or I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But it's like, I'm going to start cold turkey. I'm going to stop drinking after, I partied all night New Year's Eve. I'm not going to drink all of 2023.
And then 8 hours later.
Your
kids are driving you nuts. And
hair of the dog, you need another one.
Wine.
but
that wasn't nuts.
I know. So many of them, it's something that you want, but you don't lay out a plan. And that's why, we'd always joke at the gym that January was horrible, but don't worry, by the third week, it'll even back out and all the newbies will be gone again. Because there was no plan. There was a goal, but there was no steps on how to get there. And so we want to talk a little bit about, it's great to dream really big, but without action, without putting a plan together, how are you going to get anywhere? I think John Maxwell said something like, you can set out big dreams, or you can set out these big goals, but if you don't have a plan or a purpose or, the direction you're going, you're just out kind of wandering.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of people wandering.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people with dreams. There's a lot of people that have this small voice that's saying, this is something that you should be doing. And it's not a resolution. A big dream is something that's been on your heart for a while, and it's a passion project. It's something that you really want to do, whether you're changing your career, whether you're starting a family, no matter what it is for you personally, getting healthy, whatever it is. It's not like this short-term thing. Big dreams are like, I want to launch a podcast, and I'm not just going to do it for a year and turn it off. Like, I'm going to launch it and let it grow and let it develop while I grow and develop. And what does it take? So when you think about your big dream, how do you start? I feel like that's something that's really hard for people. We launched a business last year with the barn. We didn't just launch a business and start selling the next day, especially a flower farm. That's a long-term investment. You have to build it. You got to plant the seed. You have to water it. It's got to grow. You got to fight back everything that wants to kill that, whether it's environmental or insects, or in our case, rabbits that wanted to eat every time we got something growing good. You come out the next morning, it's all gone. It's like, what? I protected this entire yard from the one enemy I thought would kill everything, the gopher.
Yeah.
So it couldn't get to it from underground, but all those things that walk above ground could destroy it to eventually get to the point of sales. And so when you think about your big dream, an easy tool that I've used for the barn and in when we did the digital course or like this podcast would be, what's my big goal? And let me work it backwards, which sounds weird to people. But if you do, like, I want to start a podcast, and you start to work that backwards and say, okay, I want to start this podcast. When am I launching it? So when are we launching? We went to Dream Big in January, and we launched it in March of 2020. So David had a dream in January. And so we didn't have a dream of launching in March, but That's how it worked out.
But we had time on our hands.
But we had some time on our hands. So we started to go home, and he said, well, let's figure out the podcast. He didn't just do the let's record. It's like, no, I need to figure out how do I get this out there once I record. So here's my platform. Let me learn about the websites. Let me get the software. Let me get the equipment. Okay, now that I have the equipment, what am I going to do? What's my plan?
Yeah.
I have to come up with good content. I can't just jump on here and rant or no one's going to care. And when I'm trying to plan content, how much content? How long am I recording for? What am I doing? It's all these small little steps, but it wasn't just something that we just went out and we figured out in one day. It was like, let's get the equipment. Okay, let's learn how to use the equipment. Let's find the platform. Let's do a test run to see if we even like what this looks like. And then let's keep evolving. And it was all these small steps that got to the point of, okay, let's actually release this guy. And then what does that look like?
Right.
How do we build traction? You know, what is Canva? I feel like, it came out for us, right, when we were starting the podcast. How do I market? How do I build sales? All those things. So this big dream can feel overwhelming if you take it in all on day one.
And the great thing about most big dreams is, by the way, I hate to surprise you, but someone else has already done it. Yeah. And there's content out there. And I went to YouTube and spent a lot of time just watching videos. Pat Flynn was awesome when it came to the right type of equipment. And that's the thing. People have done it, and they want to explain how they were successful and how they were able to do it and what software to use, what software not to use. And they're just doing, putting it out there for free. Mm-hmm. And so when it comes to a big dream and I don't know how to do this, I guarantee someone's already done it and they're more than happy to teach you how to do it.
Yeah, there's so many resources. I think that's the thing. There's a roadmap already out there probably for what you're trying to do, even if it's not something that's a podcast or something that's mass marketed. If you're trying to build a new product, by the way, there's a roadmap of how to build a new product. Maybe not your specific one, but there's a business plan out there that you can Google and learn. And I think that's the thing. You have this big dream, but it takes you stepping into it saying, I'm willing to learn what it's going to take to do this, or I have money to pay experts. Right. I think when you fumble your way through, when you're unqualified and unwilling, that's when it starts to fail. Your big dream just becomes this thing that you never accomplished.
Or as soon as you see some failure, you quit.
Right.
I think that's more than anything. And gosh, you want the failure. Mm-hmm. Expect the failure. Learn from the failure. Don't quit from the failure.
Right. Well, I feel like that's part of the unwilling. It's unwilling to step into it, unwilling to learn, to fail, to try again, to pivot. That's all part of a big dream. It's not going to just be the end result immediately. It's going to take time and effort. So are you willing to put in the time and effort while still doing whatever it is you do every day to maintain the lifestyle you have while you're building this big dream? I think that's the other piece is you have to, the time is never just going to show up. You have to make it if you have a big dream.
Yeah. And the other thing is you can't expect immediate results. Mm-hmm. It's going to take time. It's going to take time to fail and keep going before you start seeing results. A quote from Jim Rohn is, if you plant in the spring, you won't starve in the fall. And it's simple and it's great because, the bar in San Diego, we plant flowers and all the things. But it's so true. If you're not doing anything now, how do you expect to get anything in the future? Yeah. Andy Stanley says, everybody ends up somewhere in life. A few people end up somewhere on purpose. I
love that. I think we just need to slow down on that one for a second.
I'll say that again. Everyone ends up somewhere in life. A few people end up somewhere on purpose. Yeah. Because we can get caught up in we go to work all day and we go to the kids' stuff in the evening, then we watch TV and go to bed. And the next day we get up and all of a sudden weeks, months have passed, but we haven't changed anything. Mm-hmm. And so what he's saying, people end up somewhere on purpose because they have a plan and they pursue it and they fail and they move forward and they, have some great successes and then they fail again, but they keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I like the on purpose. It's part of that, is life happening for you or to you?
Right.
Right? And so it's part of I have this big dream, I got to show up for it. It's not just going to happen. It's intentional. It takes my time. It takes my resources. And it has to be purposeful for me to be the number one fan of this big dream, because no one's going to do it for me. It's my big dream. My big dream is not David's big dream, unless it's a coffee farm in Hawaii for retirement. We happen to be connected on that one. But we're not wired to have the same big dreams. And even with that, my vision for the coffee farm and why I long to be on that coffee farm is different than David's. Right. He wants to be the roaster. He wants to be the taster. And I'm over here, I'm like, oh, I want to bring the people in. And what am I going to have there that's going to make this an experience that they long for? And he's over here like, I just want to drink a lot of the really good coffee.
I'm the doer. Hey.
And I think that's the difference is we have the same end goal, but our reasons for wanting it are different. And so part of that big dream is really like part of your own passion. What are you driven for? What's the type? How are you wired? How's that going to work? So part of that small step is really understanding that not everyone is going to understand what you're trying to do right away. And even when they do understand what your big dream is and why you're chasing it, they might not be your biggest fan for it. But it doesn't matter. It's your big dream. It's what we talked about with the barn. There's a lot of people that think we're crazy. You're already running a business. You have this family. You're trying to keep your head above water with all the things you have going. So why are you doing this? It's like, my why is for me. Yeah. I don't have to explain my why to you to make it make sense for you.
Yeah.
Because this is my life and I'm living it with the purpose that I'm meant to live it. Right?
Right. And I think that's important, that don't let others' opinions stop you from your big dreams. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if you're married and your significant other has good reasons why you shouldn't be pursuing whatever, like you want to create the biggest Lego collection in the world, well, there's reasons that you probably shouldn't do that. But there are, if you have a big dream that is not against what your family values are and your marriage and your kids and all the things, you should pursue it, even if there's doubt from the significant other. But if it's not anything that's going to hurt them, I don't doubt that it's something that God has called you to do. Now, again, if it's something that takes you away from all that and your focus is gone, then you got to really rethink of, is it a selfish dream or is it something that's going to be better for your family in the long run?
Right. And it's going to give you the passion you need to want to show up for yourself every day, right? If you're doing things you don't love because you've got this big dream you've never tried to pursue, you're going to be in a cycle where you just continually feel like you're not making traction on the things you want in your life. And I think a lot of people over the past few years have said, I'm tired of this 8 to 5, clock in and clock out in an office. And I can go do my job anywhere in the world and telecommute and do something I love. And that's what people started doing in the last 2 years. That was the great exit of staff that said, I want a life that I'm living and it's not living for my job.
Right.
That my job is allowing me to go live life the way I want to live it. And so now you got people sitting on a beach with their laptops, doing their Zoom calls, and that's how life has changed. But it's working. And I think that that's part of that big dream, is realizing if that's your big dream, to not be strapped in an office every day and that you can work in a place that you love with an environment you love, go pursue it. Now is the time. Things are evolving, so you can redefine what work looks like, what life looks like, to give you that window to chase the big dream, rather than like, oh, I can't do it because I got to go sit in traffic for 2 hours every day to get to my office. Hey, guess what? Your office doesn't have to be in a building anymore.
Yeah, interesting. I heard something on a podcast, John Acuff this morning, talking about how a business owner was talking about prior to COVID, he didn't have to worry about his people showing up for work. Mm-hmm. And now, as a business owner, you do, because they don't necessarily want to show up into an office every day. Before, that's kind of what you did. You got up in the morning, you fought through 2 hours of traffic, if that's what you had to do to get to an office space to sit for 8 hours and then fight it on the way home. And that's just how the human race in America had evolved, that's just normal. Mm-hmm. And it's completely changed. And as a business owner, I have to change my business practices. And whether I'm going to, well, I would say the business owners have to dream big too, of like, how am I going to keep this business successful doing it differently? And what are the steps for that? Because the workforce has completely changed.
Yeah. I think employees started dreaming. I think they were sent home and they realized, and I either don't love this career, I don't love the lifestyle it's giving me, or if I'm going to be trapped at home, I'm going to be trapped at home in a place I love, whether that's in the mountains, whether that's on a beach, on a tropical place, who knows? I mean, how many people now have decided that they're going to sell their houses, move, or live out of a van or an RV? I mean, this is the nature of what's happening right now. And there's nothing wrong with it. If that's your big dream and if that's your passion for this season of life right now, go for it.
Right.
If you can, go for it, because by the way, when you're 70, it's not going to work. So if you're in your 20s, 30s, and 40s and you're like, I don't want to be the person that my parents and grandparents were, where they started a job, they stayed there for 30 years till they could retire so they could just go sit at home and watch TV or be bored or whatever. It's like that era is over.
Yeah.
No one's sticking with a company for 30 years anymore. You're lucky to keep people for 5. And that's if you're an amazing company. And after that, you better be giving them something to really keep them here, or they're just waiting to retire.
Yeah.
I think that people found their voice of what they wanted in their lives when they were forced to go home and evaluate how nice it was to not be in the routine that they were in.
And on the other side of that, there's also people who just got lazy too, who refuse to go back and work and maybe aren't where they want to be either. And, I think that also, relates to someone that has a big dream but is afraid to make the steps. And they're at the end of the day of working their regular job, they have this big dream, but they can't get off the couch to go step into it.
I don't think they got lazy. I think they lost passion. I think a lot of people lost passion.
Yeah. Whatever the word is, lazy, lost passion, just don't have the same drive to pursue the way they did before. But I would just say that if you have the people, everyone that has a sort of a big dream, it's going to take more energy than maybe what you've thought you had to put into it to really move it forward.
Yeah.
It's just not going to come to you. You got to work hard for it. It's going to blood, sweat, and tears, and more tears probably. But you have to know that if I really want this, it's going to take me out of my comfort zone, and it's going to take me to do things that I am not comfortable doing and typically wouldn't do. This podcast is sponsored by CBSI. For the last 35 years, CBSI has helped customers navigate change in their organizations, whether they need a team to manage their construction projects or are planning a relocation to right-size their office space. With transparent communication and culture-building strategies, CBSI leads the leaders of organizations through complex projects. If you are in the need of a proven team, check them out at cbsisandiego.com.
I think the other thing with the small steps in your big dream is to realize that you're going to hit a fork in the road along the way. And the decision you make might not be the right one, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Your dream, when you're launching it, you're going to find that it's going to evolve and change and grow, and you're going to have to adapt into what it's becoming. And you get to define what it becomes, by the way. Part of stepping into a calling is to say, like, I'm in this even when it's hard, or I'm in this when nobody's watching, right? It's part of the Christine Kane that we talk about with the dark room. We've talked about it on several podcasts before. It's like what you're doing for the 20 years you're not in the spotlight is preparing you for the moment you do step out onto that stage, whatever that stage is for you.
Yeah.
So building a big dream, it's lonely sometimes. When I was dreaming about the barn, it felt very isolating because nobody was around me doing what I'm doing. I couldn't relate to anybody except for people online, and then feels like they have what I want and there's no way I'm going to get there. But by the way, they're 5-10 years in. That's why
Right.
they have this platform that I'm watching, right? And I'm growing from. And so it is part of doing the work and the small steps when nobody's watching, when you're not getting praised, when you're not getting acknowledged. That's building you
Yep.
for the day when when the lights come on.
Building your character for
Right.
so you're able to handle it when it does happen.
Because it's going to happen. Your big dream is somehow going to come into the forefront, and people are going to see it, and you're going to have to explain it, and it's going to be something that is yours to own. It's not just something you've been doing inside this small little space by yourself. There's a point where whatever you're dreaming about becomes visible to others, and that's when you need to be ready, right? That's when you need to be ready to deal with the wins, with the losses, with all the things. But I think what we want to really instill in you is that you can do it. I mean, you can launch a podcast. You can start a small business. You can take a passion that's a hobby and turn it into something that's profitable. But you have to do the work.
Yeah.
And you have to want to do the work and be willing to do the work and get in there. Get in there and learn and grow and start with a podcast, start with a book, start with a resource, a YouTube where you're learning about whatever it is that you want to tackle, and feed yourself with it, right? So then you have these people like us and other people that you follow that go like, you totally can do that. You can start a podcast in 2 months and be really successful in getting it out there. You're not going to have 1 million followers. You're going to be really excited when you get 10.
Right.
And then you're going to get 20. Then you're going to get 30. And it's going to keep growing, but it's a slow and steady. And you're going to build momentum and success, and you're going to get better. And that's part of the game.
It is. And so I will quote the greatest NBA player of all time. That's my personal opinion. Michael Jordan. Some people want it to happen. Some people wish it would happen. Others make it happen. And for those of you that know Michael Jordan, he made things happen. He worked harder than anybody, pushed harder than anybody. I don't think everyone thought of him as an ideal teammate because he would work the crap out of everybody. But he was the greatest because of that. He made it happen. Mm-hmm. And it was the constant grinding and being better. And no matter, he was a competitor. And I think, we all have to be competitors. If we have a passion for something, we got to compete against ourselves. Usually we got to break past our own barriers. Mm-hmm. Where we think we can only make it this far, you got to push through that. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, I did it. That was hard, but I'm past it. And now I can set I can take that next step. Mm-hmm. It's a bunch of little small steps. Then you take this big leap, and then some more small steps and another big leap. Mm-hmm. But, as we talked about at the beginning of this, it's like, you have to write what your steps are. You have to create the path. It's going to be a journey. It's a windy road. It's not going to be as straight as you thought it was, but you have to keep putting those steps out. You got to keep moving your feet. You got to keep thinking about what's the next thing I can do and what's it going to take to get there.
Mm-hmm. So how are you going to make it happen? If you've got this big dream and you need to figure out how to be a business owner for this dream, get your butt online. Start doing some night school. I mean, there's so many resources. Take a digital course. That's what I did. I invested in myself. I invested a lot of time. I took a digital course on how to launch a flower farm, and I had a business background, so I didn't need that piece. But it didn't matter. I still needed to learn all the fundamentals of starting this type of business. And so maybe you need to go get the business background a little bit. Start learning and growing and take a class or do an online course or watch YouTube. And just there's so much information. So write the big dream down, work it backwards. Just start writing everything you can think of that's going to figure out how to get there, and then organize them. Organize them in a way where it says, okay, in the next 4 weeks, I need to do these things to get it started. And then once I get those things, I'm going to cross them off. And then I'm going to start to build momentum because I crossed it off. I got the equipment. I bought the website name. I don't have to know how to build the website yet, but I just need to buy the name. And then I'm going to do some more learning until I learn how to build the website or hire someone. And then start to do the next. What can I do in the next 4 weeks? And just keep working them in 4-week intervals. And you'll be amazed at how much you can get accomplished towards this dream and what it feels like when success starts to happen. So big dreams, small steps.
Yeah, I would say so. Write the thing, spend the time, spend some alone time to write those dreams down. And then after the 4 weeks or whatever that time period is, go back and reflect and see how much you've accomplished. And there are going to be things like, that didn't work, so I'm not going to keep doing that. Well, maybe I'll try this because this really worked, so I'm going to put more effort into that. When you're setting goals and dreams, you have to record them. You have to spend the quiet time, which might be the hardest thing for most of us, is actually the quiet time to write what those steps down are, but spend the time to write them down and to reflect on them. So we hope that this encouraged you. We hope that 2023, you are going to dream big. You are going to take steps, and know that if you look back at the end of this year and you followed your passions, you're going to have grown so much farther than you even imagined. We appreciate that you decided to hang out and spend some time with us discussing life and leadership. It would mean the world to us if you would share this episode on social media to increase our online presence. If you enjoyed the episode, please take a minute to rate it and review it wherever you listen. Mahalo!